Good evening and welcome to the City of Roswell Mayor and City Council meeting of Monday, September 23rd, 2024. I am Mayor Kurt Wilson. I would like to acknowledge my colleagues and council members present. Councilmember Sarah Beeson, Councilmember Christine Hall, Councilmember Lee Hills, Councilmember David Johnson, Councilmember William Morthland, and Councilmember Alan Sells. At this time, I will now turn the meeting over to our City Administrator, Mr. Randy Knighton, to explain how the meeting is run. Mr. Knighton.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson, and good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section Chapter 3.70 of the City Code, the City Council shall hold regular public meetings. The purpose of City Council meetings are for the public to participate and speak on agenda items which do constitute formal decisions by the elected body. These items are listed on the published agenda, which can be accessed via the city website prior to the meeting. This is a public meeting, and some items do require a formal public hearing. A significant and important component of city council meetings are to hear directly from residents on the items listed on the agenda, and residents are at the top of the organizational chart for the City of Roswell. Therefore, public comments and questions are essential for mayor and council to consider as they contemplate each decision. If you would like to speak on an item, we ask that you fill out a comment card, which are located at the back of the room. In order to ensure an accurate record of the meeting, we ask that everyone observe the principles of mutual respect and display the appropriate demeanor during the course of the meeting this evening, which should be and is reflective of this great community. With respect to the proceedings, we ask that attention is given to the person speaking. And if it's necessary for anyone to have an independent conversation, we respectfully ask that you exit the rear doors of the council chambers to the vestibule area. In addition, we ask that you silence any electronic devices at this time. The mayor is the presiding officer and will ensure the orderly exchange of comments, questions, and discussion leading to decisions by the elected body. We encourage everyone in attendance and the viewing audience to visit the city website for meetings, events, and departmental information. We also encourage you to review and participate in the various activities offered here in the City of Roswell, and that you visit roswell365.com for a calendar of events. There are a number of events upcoming in the City of Roswell which promote community, physical activity, and leisure as we all make Roswell the #1 family community in America. Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton, as always. Thank you, Mr. Knighton, as always. And Will, thank you for switching chairs with me right before the meeting, making sure that I got this junior seat that I cannot sit up enough in. I really appreciate that. Well done. Tag. All right, at this time, we are incredibly privileged to have Pastor Terry Stagner Collier of the Cross of Life Lutheran Church. I'd like to ask Terry forward for our moment of silence and invocation.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Lord God, we thank you for the blessing of gathering these community leaders once more to serve the people of our Roswell community. You have blessed us with many resources to provide our citizens with a gracious, empowered, and vibrant way of life. As we engage in the business of our calling, we pray that you would open our eyes to see the needs around us, open our minds to consider all possibilities, open our hearts to respond with compassion, and open our hands to do your work. We pray for safety in our schools, for the protection of all who serve in public office, and for your providential care for our first responders, healthcare workers, and those serving in our military. In these divisive times, we pray that your spirit of unity would prevail among us and make us a vision of civility and respect in all deliberations. In this moment of silence, lead us to your wisdom. In your powerful name, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Stagner Collier of the Christ of Life Lutheran Church. Thank you for that wonderful prayer. Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to ask United States Army Sergeant Randall L. Hecht to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So Sergeant Hecht, I'm going to ask you to stay up there. I'd like to ask council to come down and join me for the first item under the mayor's report, which is the reading of a proclamation for the esteemed veteran of Roswell Award.
Get 5 minutes.
That's it.
That was in Israel.
Awesome. Great picture. Proclamation, Office of the Mayor, Sergeant First Class Randall L. Hecht, esteemed veteran of Roswell. Whereas the city of Roswell, Georgia recognizes the outstanding contributions and sacrifices made by veterans who have served our nation with honor and distinction, and whereas Sergeant First Class, retired Randall L. Hecht, known to many as Randy, proudly entered the United States Army at the age of 24, embarking on a military career that began with basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey, in March of 1979. And whereas Sergeant First Class Hecht served with great dedication as a Scott helicopter repairer, fulfilling a wide range of critical roles, including helicopter mechanic, crew chief, technical inspector, door gunner, aerial observer, and at times, pilot. His responsibilities extended to navigating and searching for threats, calling for fire, and participating in aircraft crash investigations. Whereas throughout his distinguished career, Sergeant First Class Hecht received specialized training in safety, aerial observation, human factors engineering, and respiratory protection, as well as completing both basic and advanced non-commissioned officer courses, all of which contributed to his exceptional leadership and technical expertise. And whereas Sergeant First Class Hecht's dedication to service was recognized through numerous awards and decorations, including the Meritorious Service Medal, 3 Army Good Conduct Medals, and the Humanitarian Service Medal, reflecting his commitment to excellence and humanitarian efforts. And whereas following his retirement on June 19, 1995, after more than 16 years of honorable service, Sergeant First Class Hecht continued to pursue his passion for learning, earning a Bachelor of Science in Occupational Safety and Health, a Master's in Leadership with a minor in Disaster Preparedness, and attending seminary to further his ability to serve others. And whereas Sergeant First Class Hecht has continued to serve his community and fellow veterans in meaningful ways as a volunteer chaplain with the Roswell Police Department for over 20 years, a chaplain with the Blue Knights Georgia 6th Law Enforcement Motorcycle Club, and as a member of the 11th Hour Squadron out of Johns Creek, providing compassionate care to veterans and their families. Now, therefore, I, Kurt M. Wilson, Mayor of the City of Roswell, Georgia, do hereby name Sergeant First Class Randall L. Hecht, an esteemed veteran of Roswell, and extend our deepest gratitude and admiration for his service, and call upon our citizens to recognize his outstanding service to our country and our community, and that there is no higher calling than those who've served the United States Armed Forces. Thank you, sir. Would you like to say a few words?
Somebody gave a chaplain microphone in 5 minutes. We came here 24 years ago, 26 years ago to Roswell from Savannah. Right here? Yes. I can talk though. We came here 26 years ago. We did our research. I asked people when I worked for FEMA where was the safest place to bring my kids to. And it was here because of the police department and those who supported it. I worked with emergency responders, so that's what I looked for, was people who could take care of it. But the city also takes care of them. And without them, it wouldn't be a place to be. And a few days ago, I thanked the Recs, Parks and Recs, for all the work they did. And thank all of you for taking care of the city.
Thank you, sir.
You want this crowd up there?
Yeah. You have the rest of you? Come on.
She's been around for 47.
Let's have the whole crew.
Absolutely.
That's right.
We'll squeeze in.
Come on. Right.
You want the police chief up here, unfortunately? Police, you want the police crowd?
The police crowd would be nice. They're part of the family. Let's see, I've known the person.
You got some work out. All right.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the other half of the family.
That's right.
That's my. Can't hold my breath much longer.
Oh, if you're sucking it in, you don't have to worry about what the hell is me sucking it in.
Stay healthy, young lady.
2 hours.
So next on the mayor's report is a proclamation for Roswell's 74th annual, forgive me, Francis McGahee's Youth Day celebration. You know, the Roswell Youth Advisory Council has gathered here tonight, they're over here to my right, to announce the 74th annual Francis McGahee Youth Day celebration. Roswell Youth Advisory Council, open to high school students, offers a platform for young people to provide advice, coordinate efforts, and engage with their city on a higher level. This council is involved in initiatives such as representing youth at Roswell's Youth Day celebration in October, assisting with city's initiatives, and promoting civic engagement within Roswell. As part of the tradition of the Youth Day celebration, we would like to invite the Roswell Youth Council to represent the mayor and council as we pronounce October 5th, 2024 as Youth Day in Roswell, Georgia. At this time, I'd like to invite this year's Roswell Youth Advisory Council, consisting of 18 fantastic young Roswell residents, to stand and come join myself and the council up front. I think they come up here. You guys come on up here, I believe, correct? Yes. Okay. Outstanding. So I'm going to read names of these fantastic 18 young people who belong to the Roswell Youth Council. You guys come on up. Those of you who have a council person already picked out to replace. And of course, we need the fire chief and the police chief.
When you're ready to talk.
All right. So the president, the president representing, sorry. The president representing Mayor Kurt Wilson, that's me, is Mr. Ryan Ditmore. Oh, sorry, Ryan. Yeah. Take you out. Let's do that again. The vice president representing Mayor Pro Tem William Mortland is Maureen Schumacher. Maureen, say hi to everybody. Let everybody know who you are.
Most important person is the backup quarterback.
Yes. The youth member council representing Councilmember Sarah Beeson is Autumn Lang, the secretary. The youth council member representing Councilmember Christine Hall is Mally Ewing. Mally? Yes. Yes, welcome. The council member representing Lee Hills is McKenna Remmenschneider. Did I do good? Yes. Outstanding. The council member representing David, I'm very sorry, Layla. Did you have to represent David? The council member representing, yes.
I'm just gonna let her stay here. I'm gonna go home.
We're good with that. That's a deal. The council member representing council member David Johnson, Layla Hicks. Hey, Layla. The council member representing Allen Sells, Chloe Sherman. Hey, Chloe. Representing Police Chief Jim Conroy is Gavin Lamarche. Gavin? Gavin, did I do all right? The name? Perfect. The youth council member representing Fire Chief Joe Pinino is Henry Shaner. And representing our city administrator, our CEO, Mr. Randy Knighton, is Lily Mittman. Lily. Hey, Lily. Sorry. And then let me announce the names of the rest of these fine, fantastic young youth council members. And raise your hands so everybody can see you. Anna Buffalo. Anna. Macy Griffin. Emery Rodman. Kaya Pagels. Peppy Ewing. Where's Peppy? Kepi Ewing. Malia Richards. There's Mally. Taylor Vogelsnager. And Sophia Burbank Helm, who's also the treasurer of the Youth Council. So at this time, Roswell Youth Council members, please take your place as our youth representatives for Roswell Youth Council. Oh, you should have already been here, sorry. Hold on to your place. I'll stand, switch seats with your representative. Oh, they were ready to go. And at this time, the dais is now yours, sir. Congratulations,
Sure.
Good luck. We'll see you in a couple hours. We're gone.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It is an honor to represent this great city that we all call home for this year's Youth Day on October 5th. At this time, I would like to ask Vice President Schumacher to announce this year's Youth Day theme.
Thank you. This year's Youth Day theme is Innovation Meets Tradition. This theme embraces Roswell's forward thinking while staying rooted in our historical values. I would like to ask Secretary Lang to explain the logo creation for this year's event.
Thank you. The final logo you see today was created based on ideas gathered and shared at our first council meeting. These ideas, drafts, and creative thoughts were shared with a local designer who perfectly captured Roswell's roots while looking to be a part of a bright future as part of the whole Metro Atlanta region. Do I have a motion to accept this logo as this year's Youth Day logo?
I motion to approve this theme and logo for this year's Youth Day celebration.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion. I third.
I fourth.
I fifth.
I sixth. Oh. I seventh.
I would say that passes unanimously. At this time, I would like to officially read the 74th Annual Francis McGee Youth Day Celebration Proclamation. Whereas the youth of Roswell are an important part of the community, and whereas the youth of Roswell represent the future of our great city, and whereas the youth of Roswell for the past 74 years has celebrated its youth with a wide citywide celebration, and whereas the theme for the 74th annual Youth Day celebration is Innovation Meets Tradition, and whereas festivities for Saturday, October 5th will include the annual Francis McGee Youth Day Parade, Fall Farm Days at Smith Plantation, Touch a Truck at Roswell City Hall, and Art Block, highlighting both National Arts and Humanities Month and National Hispanic Heritage Month at the Roswell Cultural Arts Center. Now, therefore, I, the Youth Advisory Council Interim Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim Saturday, October 5th, 2024 as Youth Day in the City of Roswell, and I call upon all our citizens, young and old, to help us celebrate and promote this most honored day in our community.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Why don't we have the students come down right in front of your elected official? Would that be a little bit better?
Yeah.
Okay, and then.
Soccer style, yeah.
And then that way, yeah, and then we can kind of spin a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we'll have to do, all right. And actually, Randy, can I have you over here? Keep smiling.
There's some, oh my gosh.
I offered 3 minutes and $5.
You're a cheap man. All right, next on the mayor's report is a list of upcoming events in the city of Roswell. And I'd like to ask my colleague, Councilmember Lee Hills, to make those announcements. Lee?
Happy to do so, Mayor. As Mr. Knighton said earlier, please check out Roswell365.com if you'd like to find out what's happening in our community here in Roswell. If you would like to participate in something or host something that we would like opened up to the public, please register for a free account, and you can publish your information right there, and it'll be free to all those perusing Roswell365.com. Quite a few things on the horizon here, so bear with me. We have Roswell Riverside Sounds. That's every fourth Saturday, April through September, so we're winding down on that programming. The next one is September the 28th, and this is the longest running Roswell free outdoor concert series, highlighting various musical genres. This month, September the 28th, is the electrifying Diego Garcia. Spain's king of twang, known for his remarkable adaptability and unique sound. Garcia is recipient of the 2013 Latin Grammy Award offering a blend of Spanish guitar, Latin beats, country, and jazz. We also have next Sunday, September the 29th, the 2024 Roswell Wine Festival. It's a much anticipated event here in the city. It's from 2 to 5 on Sunday, September 29th, along historic Roswell's Canton Street. Come out to the beautiful historic Roswell for the wine festival and sample over 200 wines from your favorite local restaurants and businesses. General admission ticket holders receive tastings at all participating establishments and a commemorative wine glass. VIP ticket holders receive access to the general admission areas plus the exclusive VIP tent, which opens early at 1 p.m. and features hand-selected premium wines. We have, as was just mentioned and showcased, the 74th Annual Youth Day celebration, which everybody commonly calls that the Youth Day Parade here in Roswell. So that will be Saturday, October the 5th, Roswell Area Park and Canton Street from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You heard some of the activities that'll be included, but I'll go through it again. This is on October 5th, and it begins with the Francis McGahee Parade at 10 a.m. at Roswell Area Park. This year's theme is Innovation Meets Tradition. Following the parade, the celebration continues with Art Block Fall Farm Days at Smith Plantation and Touch-a-Truck from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Food and drink are available and for purchase at the Food Truck Alley. Go to Roswell365.com to view the parade route. Then we also are celebrating the next Sundays in the Park, which is a free outdoor concert series at Riverside Park and Town Square. And this is May through October, so October 13th is the last one of this season, and this one will be featuring Roswell New Horizons Pop Band. Embark on a musical journey across the United States with a musical tour of the USA, a harmonious medley of tunes symbolizing locations across the USA, from New York streets to the scenic landscapes of the Midwest. Special guests are the color guard of the Sons of the American Revolution, adding a touch of patriotic flair to the evening, and the enchanting harmonies of the Georgia Sensation Chorus, a group of talented women renowned for their captivating barbershop harmony. And then finally, hard to believe we're already here, the last Alive in Roswell event for the season, and that's October the 14th. Can't believe we're already here. That is every third Thursday, April through October, and this will be October 14th on a Thursday from 5 to 9. And this is a free monthly festival featuring music, food trucks, interactive vendors, and participation from the many surrounding boutiques, small businesses, and restaurants. So we hope you will come, bring a friend, enjoy, eat, drink, be merry, and have a grand old time. So thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you out and about in Roswell. Mayor?
Thank you, Lee. All right, that concludes the mayor's report for this evening's mayor and city council meeting. Next is the consent agenda. Does council have any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? Being that there are no comments or questions from the council on the consent agenda, are there any Roswell residents that would like to speak on the consent agenda? Being that there are no residents at this time to speak on the consent agenda, I bring it back for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Motion made by Councilmember David Johnson to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Alan Sells. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda tonight, please raise your hands. Let the record show that it is unanimous. All 6 hands are raised. Thank you very much. All right, next is the regular agenda. The first item is under the Administration and Governance Department. The liaison is Councilmember Lee Hills. Councilmember Christine Hall. Councilmember Hall, would you read the first item under administration and governance, please?
Yes, sir. Item number 1, approval of a text amendment of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances to Chapter 8, Health and Public Safety, Article 1, Animal Control, Section 10.1, Tethering of Dogs. This is the second reading, and it will be presented by our attorney, Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Councilmember Hall. David, would you read the ordinance, please, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 8, Health and Public Safety, Article 1, Animal Control, Section 10.1, Tethering of Dogs. Chapter 8, Health and Public Safety, Article 1, Animal Control, Section 10.1, Tethering of Dogs of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell, Georgia, is hereby amended by deleting said article and replacing said article with a new Article 10.1, Tethering of Dogs, which shall read as shown in Exhibit A, which is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this is the second reading.
Thanks, David. Does council have any questions or comments? At this time, does anyone from any Roswell residents would like to speak on this item? Bring it back to council. Any further additional comments or questions? Christine, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, sir. Motion to approve item number 1, approval of a text amendment of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances to Chapter 8, Health and Public Safety, Article 1, Animal Control, Section 10.1, Tethering of Dogs.
Thanks so much, Christine. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember David Johnson. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Second item is also underneath administration governance by Councilmember Hall. Would you read the next item, please, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Approval of a text amendment of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances to add a new section 8.1.25- Prohibition of transient sales of dogs, cats, and domestic rabbits. This is the second reading presented by our attorney, Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Councilmember Hall. City Attorney Davidson, would you please read the ordinance, please, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 8, Health and Public Safety, Article 1, Animal Control, Section 25, Prohibition on transient sales of dogs, cats, and domestic rabbits. Now, therefore, the mayor and council of the City of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following amendment. Chapter 8, Health and Public Safety, Article 1, Animal Control, Section 25, reserved of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell, Georgia, is hereby amended by deleting said article and replacing said article with a new Article 25, Prohibition on transient sales of dogs, cats, and domestic rabbits, which shall read as shown in Exhibit A, which is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference. And if approved, this is the second reading.
Thank you, David, very much. Does council have any questions or comments on this particular text amendment? Councilmember Hills.
Yes, if I might ask Councilmember Hall, will you, just for those that are just now tuning in on this, give the little quick brief on how this is also helping to eradicate human trafficking that this mayor and council is committed to doing in the city of Roswell? Please, ma'am.
Certainly. Basically, the transient sales of primarily dogs is not monitored, and for this reason, there are bully breeds that are bred, and animals that are bred for purposes of guarding, of dog fighting, and illicit activities, and this just helps to eradicate those from our city, but hopefully from the state eventually and altogether.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Lee, did you want to add a comment to that? I know you're familiar with it.
Well, yes, we are extremely aware of what's going on in the world, in the United States, in Georgia, and even in the city of Roswell with human trafficking, with prostitution, and illicit behavior. So anything that we can do to button that up and eliminate the opportunity for people to be abused, abducted, used, and sold, basically, like common goods, we're supportive of. So I'm delighted that Christine Hall, our council member, my colleague, has brought this forward, and of course we want to keep a handle on what's going on with certain animal breeds regardless, but this is just one more piece. Our police department has been on top of this like Sasquatch, with a humongous, largest in the region last September, and then yet another large bust just recently, and All we can do is put forth the ordinances and say, go forth and arrest and lock them up. And so I'm very proud of our police department. I know fire is working behind the scenes probably on something, but police department is killing it on that. And we don't want any of these guys or gals here in the city, with or without a dog, promoting or making money on or trafficking any human in any regard.
Thanks, Lee. Any other thoughts? Yes, ma'am. Christine.
And all credit really goes to the Georgia Pet Coalition, as they are actively working with cities, counties, and the state to hopefully get this passed in this next legislative session statewide. So really kudos to them for highlighting this and actively working to eradicate this behavior.
Thanks so much, Christine. Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments from council? At this time, I'll ask if any Roswell residents would like to comment on the matter. Yes, sir. Welcome. Please state your name and where you live.
I'm still Roman in Roswell. I have just a general question.
Sorry, what's your address, sir?
Oh, Whitehall Way.
I'm sorry?
Whitehall Way,
What's the address?
810.
Thank you.
Just general question. I graduated in animal science, so my question is why just 3 animals are mentioned in this one? Because we have more animals, like I know they're selling chickens and baby chicks and all this stuff. Where are they in this one, or other animals? Just a question. How many animals need to be involved in this?
Thank you so much, sir, for your comment. We appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Welcome. Please let everybody know your name, who you're with, and
Peggy McCarthy, and I live at 2930 Willow Green Court in Roswell. And I just wanted to respond to this gentleman's question because I am a volunteer with the Georgia Pet Coalition. And we represent companion animals in Georgia. There's very powerful lobbies that work against legislation to protect other types of animals. And for example, reptiles and exotics. Reptiles in particular have a powerful national lobby, and they fight protective legislation for these kind of animals. Anytime you have these type of sales, whether it's lizards, dogs, cats, you'll find that these come from mills, just big pet mills where there's not a lot of welfare and care for these animals. But sometimes it's not possible to protect all animals because of the various lobbying forces.
Peggy, can you address, because I think this ordinance is really started from your leadership in the Georgia Pet Coalition, as Christine mentioned. So just kind of want to elaborate on that, because I think these are the 3 that you guys kind of highlighted that you really wanted the city to focus on.
Well, when you talk about shelter euthanasia, dogs, cats, and rabbits are the top 3. And I know the Georgia Veterinary Medical Association, when we introduced the state bill about 4 years ago when we first introduced it, one of the board members of the Georgia Veterinary Medical Association, who is a licensed veterinarian, asked that very question: why not all of these animals that you find? And again, it's hard work, and it's convincing lawmakers like yourselves to be on board.
Well, it's a great question. Thank you, Roman, for asking the question, and thanks for bringing it up. And obviously, if it's something you want to pursue, I think obviously bring it back to Christine, and the body will pursue it. I have full confidence. Any other thoughts or comments from Roswell residents? Thanks so much. All right. Being that there's not, I bring it back to council for final thoughts, comments. Christine, did you want to say anything?
No, I'm just ready to make a motion.
Make a motion. Yes, ma'am.
Motion to approve item number 2, approval of a text amendment of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances to add a new section 8.1.25, prohibition of transient sales of dogs, cats, and domestic rabbits, second reading.
Thanks so much, Christine. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lee Hills. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Let the record show that the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Georgia Pet Coalition, and congratulations, City of Roswell. And Christine, thank you for your great work on that. All right, Christine, you have one last item under administration governance.
Yes, sir. Item number 3, approval of a text amendment of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances to Section 14.2.4, paragraph 17, activities prohibited in parks and public places, Old Mill Park. This is the second reading.
Thanks so much. City Attorney David Davidson, would you read the ordinance, please, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 14, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, Article 2, Regulation of Use of Public Parks, Section 4, Subsection 17, Activities Prohibited in Parks and Public Places of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the City of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following amendment. Chapter 14, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, Article 2, Regulation of Use of Public Parks, Section 4, Subsection 17, Activities Prohibited in Parks and Public Places of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell, Georgia, is hereby amended by deleting said article and replacing said article with a new Article 14.2.4-17, Activities Prohibited in Parks and Public Places, which shall read as shown in Exhibit A attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference. Also, if you'll note, the subsection J was requested to be added for the second reading and is currently in Exhibit A. And if approved, this would be the second reading.
Thank you, David. I've got a little note here. It says, ask council member to present the item, but the item just got presented by you, so I think there's no reason that would be redundant. So I'm going to ask council if they have any thoughts, comments, or questions on the matter. Sarah, yes, ma'am.
I feel like you're looking at me because you know I have thoughts.
Sorry.
No, you're right. I'll just reiterate the same points that I made in the first reading as well as the initiation in committee. So this is just a summary of anything that I've said before. It's nothing new. Instead of addressing the crowds, I think that we're simply finding ways to make one of our more popular public parks less hospitable. The namesake for this park was featured in our logo. Literally, if you look around the room, you see a picture of the mill. And it allows folks, especially in this area of Metro Atlanta, to have what's already limited access to nature. We're limiting it even further. As I stated in past meetings, I prefer to address the demand for this park by enforcing parking just at the lot and limiting street parking in the area. So essentially, whenever the lot is full, no more cars would be allowed in, and we would restrict the public parking on the street, especially because these are historic roads that are already narrow, which is actually better for public safety as well. In the event that we have to get an engine down that road, it's very limited when you have cars parked on the street. Instead, in this instance, I believe that we're creating, for lack of a better word, asinine rules, and by banning coolers and limiting access to the water. I say they're asinine because the water itself can still be accessed from the national park side, which is actually the more dangerous access point. So anybody who's at the water right now, I have a picture from a couple of weeks ago from a weekend. We have about 30 or 40 people hanging out in the water still. And I think that begs the question, well, I thought they weren't allowed in the water. No, they are allowed in the water. They would just have to hike through the national park side. The national park side is more difficult to access. If you see somebody down there, you're like, oh, I'll just hike around and get to it. But that's where we actually get a majority of our public safety calls for slip and falls, especially for people slipping and falling on the rocks. So I feel like we're incentivizing that further. As for the coolers, the ban, as it's been stated before, both in committee and during the first reading, was it was quote unquote to limit littering and to quote keep people from hanging out. Littering is already illegal. You can see it already written here in the ordinance, so it's redundant itself. But additionally, I thought the entire purpose of a public park was to hang out. That's what parks are for. So I don't understand initiating any kind of rules that would limit hanging out in a park. For example, one of the groups of people who were asked to leave recently or remove themselves from the water, it's not the examples that we were given in the past. It's not college-age partiers. It's not a scantily clad woman. It was a mother and her 8-year-old child who were sitting with their feet in the water on a hot day reading books. As a mother of a kid myself, and that's exactly how I would want to be able to enjoy my afternoon with my 7-year-old, is hanging out with our feet in the water, enjoying nature and reading, and instead we're having to ask folks like this to remove themselves from an amenity in a public park. And I find that extremely frustrating that we as a city cannot address the demand for our most popular park by more common sense means or using an X-Acto knife when instead we're gonna come through with a chainsaw. I think it's a disgrace to public policy, and I would much rather solve this through lesser means, but instead we'll be implementing these rules. So I'll be voting no.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments or questions? Councilmember Hills? Sorry,
Thank
late.
you, Mayor. In response to, but in addition to, Councilmember Beeson and I have very differing approaches on this. For the example of the woman with her children and their feet tippy-toeing in the water is such a beautiful sight. It really is. Unfortunately, because we've let ourselves go at this park, the people destroying the park have ruined it for all the well-behaved people, and there are fewer and fewer and fewer well-behaved people at this park. People are emboldened. I'm not seeing too many teenagers down there myself because I go pretty regularly and have been for 15 years. So I've seen this. It has had an uptick since COVID for sure. And I will also say that the water wheel, while it is in our logo in the city, I don't think people look at our logo and think I'm going to a waterfall. All of the graphics that have been put out by some of our marketing teams have been pulled because we're already getting tons of people in our parks, all of our parks, and several of them have water features. Very affordable swimming pool. We have access to the Chattahoochee River, and the national parks also offer some access. And I will say that calling it less hospitable has again been destroyed by people that are just, have been misusing the park. And we've gone into this before, but between alcohol, glass bottles, cans, I've personally seen needles. I've encountered a gentleman on meth who jumped off the rock on the national park side and busted his tooth, and then went back to drinking his tall boy PBR right after that. It was a delightful sight with my small children and 4 little nephews with me. So it's not an appropriate place to take children these days. I will say, with us putting these restrictions in, what Councilmember Beeson fails to tell you is that it takes time to put this parking structure in place, and that the working group has discussed all of this. I want you to know that didn't originate from Ms. Beeson, but she is absolutely correct in pointing those things out, because restricting parking, or at least managing that in a more efficient way and responsible way, will have a great impact on the use of this park and the enjoyment of this park. I frankly do not think there should be swimming there at all. I think it's should be enjoyed like most parks in the state of Georgia, where you see it, you go there. Most of them don't have to be fenced in because people are reverent to the water. That's not what's going on down there. So I just wanted to add to that, and with all due respect, Councilmember Beeson, I respect your perspective on that. I just disagree vehemently on most of that, and the timing. What some folks would say is that we aren't acting fast enough, and what these restrictions are doing is stabilizing the traffic and the misuse for the neighborhoods around that park until we can get a parking authority and mechanism in place for this specific park. So that's what that is. We'll revisit if and when we want to change any of those things down the road, but this is a historic site, why this city was built and how, and we've got people jumping off of the dam. I think that's been cut off by our PD, thank goodness. We've got people climbing the dam and throwing rocks out of a historic dam down below. I've seen people do both of those things. And we've got people that are scantily clad down there, starting in the parking lot. Walking down, and so I've got pictures as well. It's not family friendly, and most people that I have interacted with don't feel safe taking their families down there because they don't know what their kids are going to step on or see. So I'm in full support of this. The reason we added this portion about staying on the trails was that when Mr. Knighton was good enough to recognize the emergency there, was able to use his authority to say trail use only, but that did not allow the police department to enforce that. So the reason I brought this up at our last meeting was to give our police officers something by which they can keep people on the trails, or you're going to get fined. So just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Other thoughts, comments, or questions from council? Being that there are none, I will ask any Roswell residents if they'd like to comment on the matter. Yes, sir. Welcome. Please introduce yourself and where you live.
I'm a stranger just driving through. I saw the lights on. I thought I'd come in and join the party. I'm Jason Yowell, for the record.
And your address. Sorry, Jason. Your address.
5010 Old Oak Trace,
Awesome.
Roswell, Georgia.
Thank you, sir.
So I don't understand the difficulty in implementing a parking program. It would seem pretty straightforward to do a venture with an entity like Parkmobile. It already has the technology to do paid parking. And in this day and age, I think they have the ability to track license plates, and if your car is registered in the city of Roswell, then you park for free. And if it's not, you pay. And if you don't pay, you get fined. And it's not really hard to implement something like this with an existing vendor. You can do that as an interim step, and then later on, if you want to develop your own software and take it on completely internally, well, that would be a great permanent step, but you could probably put together something with an entity like Parkmobile in very short order. And I've only been advocating something like this before any of you were really on council. But, you know, I speak to the wind sometimes here in this chamber. There's only one park you can't do that, and that's Azalea Park because of the lease terms with Fulton County. But all the other parks, you own them, you can do what you want, and you don't have to wait and ask permission. And I'll just leave it at that on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate your good thoughts on the parking matter. Absolutely. Any other thoughts or comments from Roswell residents? Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Krista O'Neill.
Hey, Krista. Yeah, tell everybody when you get up here and tell everybody where you live.
Krista O'Neill, 1295 Valley Court, Roswell, Georgia.
Thank you, ma'am.
I am born and raised East Cobb, moved to Roswell. I've been going to this park my entire life, and I can't agree more that we need to clean it up. I don't feel comfortable going to the park, quite frankly, by myself because so many transients that are probably not Roswell residents are coming to the park to swim in, jump off the bridge, and, well, not the bridge, the cliff, mountain, dam, okay. So I would agree with Lee on this one. I grew up doing that, but it's not the same park that I grew up with. I used to run the trails, and I would never do that alone. I now have a 1-year-old daughter. I would not bring her there without my husband these days. So it, to me, is very much a safety concern as somebody who loves to enjoy the outdoors, loves to enjoy the park, grew up enjoying the park. I don't feel comfortable enjoying the park that I grew up enjoying at this point. And since I have a little bit of time left, and speaking of parking and safety concerns, I don't know how to bring this up, but 1295 Valley Court, pretty sure, David, you are familiar with Valley Drive, Valley Court, Prospect. That is an issue that I would love to bring to the attention of the council at some point soon. The parking on that road, one-way road at this point, with all the parking from the new business that opened up, that only has 18. Okay, I appreciate that. And I heard, David, that you might be walking the property tomorrow. I don't know if that's accurate, but if so, I will see you there.
Is there anything you won't do just to like make yourself put out there, just get like attention?
I won't bribe my.
Sorry,
youth
Krista, we don't,
councilman
it's
more than
unbelievable.
$5.
I can't believe you know his schedule.
And I want to apologize for all of the non-emergency calls, but the reason that our neighborhood is doing that is because when something happens, it's not on us, it's not on, what is the name of it? Switch yards. It's going to be on the city of Roswell because we have brought this complaint up.
Oh, we're
multiple
not
times
talking
today.
about the, okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry,
I will
Krista.
I'll end my
forgive
rant
me.
on that.
Yes, ma'am. But
I
thank
do
you.
agree
Yes,
with Lee
ma'am.
on the parks.
We are highly aware of the issue you're talking about. Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought we were talking about the part. Yeah. Thanks, Krista. Thank you. Yeah. Who else? What other Roswell residents would like to address this matter? Thank you all very much. Appreciate your very thoughtful comments and insights. Bring it back to the council for any additional thoughts and commentary. Yes, ma'am. Sarah.
Totally understand that it takes time to put a parking structure in place, but we are heading into the low season, so naturally you're going to have a drop-off of use over the next few months as it gets cooler. That would give us approximately 6 months, and it's my understanding that the parking study is due to council within the month, so my question is largely just what's the rush? Also, the limitations of trail use only, I do appreciate the implementation of this language being definitive for the sake of enforceability, especially for RPD, who has to be able to enforce these ordinances. However, that does further limit the use of the park space itself because there's not really a whole lot of picnic areas or places for families to be able to commune. you're going to inherently limit where people can have picnics or have just sit because they're not sitting in the middle of a trail. So I do have some concerns about the usability of the park with the inclusion of that language.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, ma'am, Lee.
Thank you. It's been roped off for about 4 weeks, and it's not cutting off that much space on the walkability on the trail. So that's not really cutting off much unless you're counting rocks out in the water. One thing I do want to point out is that we will be engaging in a conversation with National Park Service again. Their chief has taken another job, and I believe that they're on a talent hunt at this time. So stay tuned, but we'll stay in touch there. I've seen a lot of garbage on that side and a lot of malfeasance as well. So I forgot to mention that earlier. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from council? Being that there are none, I'd like to ask Councilmember Hall, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, sir. Motion to approve item number 3, approval of a text amendment of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances to Section 14.2.4, subparagraph 17, activities prohibited in parks and public places, Old Mill Park, second reading.
And we've got do we have an adjacent piece to that we need to add? Was there one more piece on that? Or I'm confused with the last one. It's already in there. Okay, very good. Thanks, Christine. Sorry. Yes, ma'am? Christine? Oh, seconded by Councilmember Hill. Lee Hall Hill, sorry. All right. All those in favor, please, of approving this text amendment, please raise your hands. All right.
Wait, I saw it.
All those opposed, please raise your hands. All right, let the record show that the amendment passes 5-1. Thank you very much. All right. Next on the agenda, we go to the Finance Department, also under Christine Hall. Christine, would you read the first item under the Finance Department?
Yes, sir. Item number 4, approval of an ordinance to adopt a millage rate of 4.949 for fiscal year 20. Actually, isn't it calendar year 2025?
It's
fiscal year 2025.
Yeah.
Okay. First reading. Thank you.
And then, yes, Mr. Knighton and Lynn Williams are going to present the item, is that right?
I'm sorry, presented by.
Okay, and then I think David's got to read the ordinance. So, Mr. City Attorney David, would you read the ordinance, please, sir?
Thank you. This is an ordinance to adopt a millage rate. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell wish to establish a millage rate of 4.949. The millage rate has a component of 4.049 mils for the general fund operating and capital improvement budget, and a component of 0.900 mils for servicing bond indebtedness. And if approved, this would be the first reading.
Thanks so much, David. Welcome, Lynn. Mr. Knighton, always good, very nice to see you on that side. We'd love to see you there more often, doing more presentations, but we're glad you're here.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak with you this evening regarding the proposed millage rate. I think it's important to provide perspective overall of how we arrived at this point for the proposed fiscal year 2025 millage rate. And so by way of information for those in attendance as well as the viewing audience, I'd like to provide a brief presentation of the journey that we have embarked upon over the last 2 years that leads us to tonight. First and foremost, in FY 2023 and fiscal year 2024, there was a very specific zero-based budgeting strategy, very intentional, that was brought forward and implemented by Mayor and Council. That resulted in a 5-year plan for full-time fire department, best-in-class pay for police department, also best-in-class pay for fire department, investing $10.5 million in maintenance and one-time capital. There was a huge issue with respect to deferred maintenance on many of our buildings, especially in the Rec and Park Department, investing $2.5 million in ARPA funds in East Roswell Park, and then prioritizing economic development as the underpinning of many of our activities as it relates to our budget projections. And so to unpack that a little bit deeper, obviously there was also the completion of the Oxbow Road project, which was something that was inherited by the leadership, by the mayor and council, and that project obviously was completed. The city absorbed ongoing inflation impacts and $1.9 million for best-in-class police pay plan. And let me mention a quick story. Last year I was at the Georgia Municipal Association Conference in a session with about 150 leaders, elected officials, city administrators from around the state of Georgia. And the instructor almost sarcastically asked, how many police departments here are fully staffed? I, in the room, was the only one who raised my hand because we have a fully staffed police department, which is unusual throughout the state of Georgia, and I dare say throughout the country. And because of the great leadership of mayor and council and your attention to this matter as it relates to best-in-class police pay, the city remains at 0 vacancies. That's obviously a result of intentionality and funding, but it's also a result of the culture that is being created within the organization. Also, in addition, there are $484,000 for 21 full-time staff of the fire department, year one transition. Stormwater capital allocation was increased by 50% as well, and that is a major issue that many cities and jurisdictions are grappling with throughout the country, failing in old infrastructure. And as a result, we're able to take a more proactive approach in addressing some of our stormwater and infrastructure needs, purchase of Holly Hill Historic Home and maintenance, and also paid the balance off of 2 loans on recreation land, one on Chafin and one in Mimosa as well as additional line items for 2 detectives and 1 lieutenant for crimes against children. Service level increases, we're able to absorb those ongoing inflation impacts. Again, in that next year, 2024, again, transitioning to a full-time fire department, best-in-class compensation for 911 communicators, as well as then adding 2 detectives for crimes against children, and also a full-time emergency management position. I'll also highlight, again, what was alluded to earlier, I believe, by Mayor and Councilmember Hills and Hall with respect to addressing the issue of illicit massage parlors throughout the city of Roswell. Late last year, as well as early this year, the city was able to actually close 16 establishments and rescue upwards of 50 women from that industry. Obviously, that's a quality of life issue, but it's a very real human issue that the city, based on your leadership, we have been able to address in a very tangible manner. Also, with respect to the FY 2024 budget, additional landscaping crew to maintain all historic properties, enhancing the strategic role of IT, expanded code enforcement. We now have weekend code enforcement, Saturday code enforcement. Also invested more than $21 million in transportation projects, which is key, obviously, to this economic development focus as well. $5 million for Founders Park and historic park maintenance, and adding the 3 stormwater inspection positions. I think it's important to address the bond issue since we're talking about finances and the city's strategic approach as it relates to financial stewardship. In 2022, of course, voters approved the bond referendum just at $107 million for recreation and parks, $52 million for public safety, $20 million for downtown parking deck. As a result of that, there have been very strategic and intentional property acquisition. Crabapple Middle School, a parking deck property, 911 building, and the public safety headquarters. All of these are linked through economic development and the specific intentionality and approach of acquiring properties strategically. Cities and counties, I think, over the course of time, have not been very intentional about acquiring public property. And quite frankly, the city is in the real estate business. And so being in the real estate business, it's important to have a very intentional approach of how all of these different properties link together to form our economic development framework. Completed projects, East Roswell Park, 2 turf fields, Groveway Park, 2 turf fields, Roswell Area Park, turf fields, Big Creek Park, trail renovations, bond projects under design, public safety, a 911 call center and public safety headquarters to come online next year, rivers and sidewalks, Riverside Park, Don White Park, Roswell Area Park Pond, Grimes Bridge Park, and all of those are part of this strategic trajectory of ensuring that the bond projects are completed and are positioned to enhance the opportunities for Roswell residents, and also the parking deck, which should break ground probably in the spring of next year. Upcoming project awards as well: City Hall Trails, coming along next year, late next year, East Roswell Dog Park, Roswell Area Park Turf Fields. And so now we'll get into just a brief discussion about the millage rate. Simply, what is a millage rate? It's a property tax rate. In essence, it's 1 mil equaling $1 for every $1,000 of your property's assessed value. So by way of example, you'll see on the right a fair market value of property at $575,000, and then the 40% market value down to $230,000, and you see how that equates from the assessed value to the property tax. One more slide, and I will turn it over to someone who has a great deal of additional information and certainly very astute at these matters, Ms. Lynn Williams. But I thought it was important to display this particular slide as well. You'll see the three millage rates on the City of Roswell property tax bill. You'll notice at the top left, Fulton County, 55% for schools, excuse me, and then Fulton County government is 29% of that tax bill. And then the City of Roswell, that particular tax bill represents only 16% of the total tax bill. With that, I'll turn it over to Lynn Williams for the balance of the report. But I do want to mention that all of these items that were alluded to earlier with respect to financial stewardship, there's also a cultural change within the organization that we're still churning through. That's to take a more entrepreneurial approach to how we provide services as a local government. And it's important for me to mention that we're still churning through it, we're still working, there's still work to do, but we've seen evidence of how that has been able to provide us with a platform and the ability to serve the residents of Roswell at a higher level. With that, I'll turn it over to Lynn Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton, very much, sir.
Good evening. So, as you can see here, this is a visual representation. On the next slide, I do have it with dollar-wise. So for the schools, the millage rate is 17.13, and so that's roughly about $4,000 on that, on a property of $575,000. The county would get roughly $2,000, and City of Roswell will get roughly $1.1 thousand. So the total property tax of a $575,000 home would be roughly a total of $7,100. So anytime you also look at this, you also have to talk about the value of the home, because by state law, have to be based on what your house could sell at. So that's why you see the inflationary rate go up, the value of your home go up as the market goes up. So the growth in the digest is about $684 million, or about 8%. This is on both residential and commercial. The inflation of that 600 is $573 million. So that's the growth on existing homeowners. The floating homestead exemption. So what this is in 2019, we did have the public vote on a floating exemption for the City of Roswell specifically. And so your home value can only go up by 3% if you have a homestead exemption on your home. And so the floating homestead exemption increased by $447 million. So 82% of the total increase is offset by the increases on the exemption value of our residential homestead property owners. We do have a couple of other homestead exemptions. I did want to mention that the homestead exemptions do result in more than $7 million in tax savings for our residents, an average of $217 per home. The millage rate is composed of two components. So there is a maintenance and operation and a debt service portion. And so on that, our millage rate last year in FY24 was 4.049 and 0.9 for the debt. And so we would be looking at that again tonight. So 4.949. If you look at the history, you do see how the city of Roswell has made an effort to continue to drop since FY19 at 5.2 in the M&O rate. And as you come along, you do see that that M&O has been reduced several times, including the last 2 years in which we rolled back completely. This one is based on last year's. The millage rates for North Fulton, this is comparison. The M&O rate itself is the second lowest, so Johns Creek is the only one below us on M&O itself. The debt, which was based on a voted on list of projects, does put us in the middle. And so we have today in which we are doing the first reading of the ordinance and a public hearing, and then we would have a public hearing on October 7th at 6:30, and it's at 6:30 because of the state law. And then Tuesday, October 15th, at the regular council meeting, we'll have the second reading and final public hearing.
Lynn, thank you so much. Outstanding. Mr. Knighton, thank you, sir, as well. Outstanding. Does council have any thoughts, comments, or questions for Mr. Knighton or Lynn on the presentation? Yes, ma'am. Sarah.
I have a question on this 0.9 bonded debt service rate, and I know that you showed that was the same as last year. The bonded debt service rate will remain the same for FY25, even though we're looking at doing the next rounds of drawdowns, or is it that next round of drawdowns will not hit until next year?
This millage rate is for the tax year 24, so it would come in before December of this year. So we would set another millage rate next year. And I'm not entirely certain. Once we do the issuance, I'll be able to tell you whether.
Right, I guess that's true too. We haven't done the issuance yet, so we don't really know, but we know that it will be more accumulated debt because we're going to do the next wave of drawdowns. So that wouldn't be reflected in this cycle, then it won't be reflected until next year. My brain is still wrapping around this whole fiscal year, calendar year transition, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
And the shift in years is.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, sir, Alan.
So, ripped from the headlines, Wall Street Journal today, a headline reads, "Contrary to media myth, U.S. urban crime rates are up." And it goes on to talk about those cities in particular who defunded police and deprioritized enforcement and arrest and conviction. Saw something like a 45% increase in violent crime. And, you know, I'm new to this council, but over the last few years, this mayor and council has made a big effort to keep Roswell safe, and it's focused on this kind of thing where we are not defunding police. We are actually expanding our funding for police to make it safe for Roswell residents, and I think that that's worth noting.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, sir. Any other comments from council? Thoughts, questions? Thank you very much. At this time, I'll turn it over to any Roswell residents who'd like to. Yes, sir. Welcome, Jason. Come on back up, sir.
Well, nominally, it looks like a neutral event, but it's not, because my property taxes, based on my assessment on properties I own are up nearly 100% this year. It's a huge tax increase. And really ought to be coming down. And from where I sit, there's a lot of irresponsible spending that's been going on. A lot of it has to do with real estate acquisitions. The sharpshooters deal, you paid $6 million for property that you're going to put another $3 million into it. You'll be at $9 million, and you're going to yield 3,400 square feet of office space. That works out to $1,400 a square foot. Now, one of the things about the bond issue, when it was being sold to the public, is that you're going to consolidate the police, the fire, and 911 under one roof. Now, you made a great buy at Holcomb Bridge in 400, and you got lots of room. Shouldn't have bought that. Sharpshooters, bad deal. Then you've got the purchase of Crabapple Middle. Well, when you consider that the bulk of our property taxes go to Fulton County schools, we really should have been telling Fulton County, if you want to unload that property, we've already paid for it. We're happy to take the maintenance of it off your hands if you want to deed it to us. But I think you paid asking price. And nobody said, you know, it's going to cost $58 million to renovate the building, or God knows how much to tear it down. There's no value there. Coupled with the fact that when all the new cities got created in the last 10 years, there's a big to-do about the parks and the fire stations. And Fulton County wanted to sell those communities, those facilities. And they ended up giving it to them because those communities made the case that we already paid for them. We've been carrying a bigger load of the Fulton County tax burden for many, many years, and to ask us to pay for it isn't right. So you've got these places where you've spent money.
So Jason, just to be clear, just kind of keep the comments germane to the issue.
Okay.
You are opposed to the keeping the millage rate at the same?
I would like the millage rate to be reduced so that it's revenue neutral.
So like the rollback rate that we did the previous 2 years, just for clarity, your comments are, hey, you did the rollback rate 2 years in a row, and this year you're not doing it. We're keeping the millage rate the same.
Which is a
not
tax increase.
That's why we'll have an advertised hearing next Monday on 6:30.
And so I just want you to know, I want the millage rate to go down so we're neutral, because the assessments have gone very unevenly from Fulton County.
Thanks. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time as always. Thank you for your comments and insight. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, Roman says second to that. Let the record show that Roman seconds Jason's comments. Very good. Third, any other Roswell residents who'd like to speak on the matter? Please, this is your time. Thank you so much. Appreciate your comments. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Roman. At this time, I bring it back to council for any additional thoughts, comments, or questions. Being that there are none, sorry, David. Yes, sir.
I just want to make a comment about the purchase of the Summit Building in Sharpshooters, if that's okay.
Sure.
Sandy Springs is building a public facility. Oh, sorry, started reading on the wrong line. A police headquarters and municipal court, and basically the same thing we're doing. They're going to spend $50 million. Okay, we spent 6 plus 8, 14, and then we've got to revamp some stuff.
Got to build out on the Sharpshooters Fair. It's just $3 million build up.
We're spending a lot less than 50. So, thank you.
Well, and just FYI, the reason, and probably should let Jeff or Sharon address this, but the reason we bought Sharpshooters was because of the Hardin location. And so it was strategic. It wasn't silly. It was an unbelievable find is what it was. We couldn't believe it. But appreciate the comments very much. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions on the matter? Thank you, council. Yes, sir, Councilman Schultz.
You know, this mayor and council also, long before I got here, has been working a good deal on economic development, specifically because we want to continuously roll those back. And so we're making some investments in this current cycle because we need to increase the economic productivity of Roswell, and that's the way we will reduce our taxes, is by doing that. So economic development is the key to that.
Amen to that. Thank you, sir. All right, so the comments and questions, that's it. I'm going to bring it back to you, to Christine. Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, sir. Motion to approve item number 4, approval of an ordinance to adopt a millage rate of 4.949 for fiscal year 2025. This is the first reading.
Thank you, Christine. Do I have a second? Seconded by Pro Tem Councilmember Will Mortland. All those in favor of passing the motion, please raise your hands. Let the record show that the passage unanimously, 6-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Christine, for your leadership on the issue. And next on the agenda is the Rec and Parks, which our liaison is Councilmember Lee Hills. Lee, would you read the first item, please, ma'am?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Number 5, recommendation to award the CMAR services for the Historic Parks Comprehensive Plan improvements to Reeves Young, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $460,420 plus 4.5% of the total construction cost, as well as an allocation of an amount not to exceed $3 million for construction costs to be funded by ARPA funds, and authorize the city administrator to execute contract. And I believe Deputy Director, City Administrator, excuse me, I'm giving you 7 or 8 extra titles.
You got to switch.
I'll take them.
Yes, is Jeff Leatherman.
Got to switch, and Randy's back, so we're in good shape. Thank you, Randy, for joining us.
Okay,
We
thank
need you back up here.
Welcome back, Mr. Knighton.
So Deputy City Administrator Jeff Leatherman's got the floor. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for reading that into the item. And as we enter into this conversation, I just wanted to take a moment and just essentially pause, because what could seem as a relatively quick contract item has a tremendous history that we
Can I interrupt you for 1
You
second?
may.
Lee, you want to pass this off just like this is a big deal. I'd kind of like you to pass it off to kind of give Jeff the proper intro, because this is he's been kind of the man behind the vision behind this, but this has been your leadership and the rest of the councils for the last 2 years, and this is the culmination of a lot of planning. This is a big deal, and I just realized, I'm looking at the technical language and I forgot what you're presenting. You know what we're presenting tonight?
Yes, sir, I do.
So it deserves a little bit more, you deserve a little more credit. Let's pass it off a little better. This is the beginning of,
To whom am I passing this, sir?
to our residents,
Oh,
so they
okay.
know. They don't know what this is.
Okay, so we are talking about the activation of a beautiful area in our historic district on Mimosa Boulevard, which is Mimosa Hall is specifically what we're talking about. And as Mayor Wilson and Councilmember Morthland and I, when we came in, not to neglect the support of my other colleagues here, but we had, as you've heard Mayor Wilson say in the past, we had a decision to make whether to stay in the historic assets business or to get the heck out of it. And we all know it costs money to keep up the old girls, and I don't mind being sexist about that, but the old girls, the homes are a lot, they require some maintenance. So we decided to commit, and it's interesting that first year we were in office in '22, we made a very strong stand in the budget meeting to pay off Mimosa Hall, and that was to the tune of $1.681 million. We paid it out flat, which had been dangling out there for some years. So that was a great point of pride for me, having lived here, and one of the 3 reasons that I moved here was historic assets. And I've been to a garage sale there and bought things there, so I have some warm fuzzies personally about it. We also purchased that same year Holly Hill, which is the last intact parcel facing our beautiful original town square. And that was a big coup. Again, about Lee here for a minute. When I toured it the first time, I was kind of worried because the mayor's like, "You want to come look at this?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And when I got home, I said to my husband, Wes, if the city doesn't buy Holly Hill, we're moving off of West Road, because I was ready to move in. It's exquisite. It's a very unique piece of property, and I think right out of the gate, we had 2 massive purchases at smoking hot deals, and I have 0 regrets for that. So for those of you that don't know, Holly Hill faces Town Square, original Town Square, backs up to Mimosa Hall property, which abuts the property for Bullock Hall. So we've been nicknaming the area Founders Park. Don't know if that'll end up being the real name, but we've got a lot of dreams, visions, plans, and we're hot to trot on monetizing that. We also, shortly after those purchases, were doing an inventory of how frequently our visitors were showing up on any of our properties, and we eliminated the fee. And so we had a humongous uptick in visits to our historic assets, and that included right across 120, Barrington, Smith Plantation. And for those of you that don't know, all of those are part of our park system, so you may go and picnic there if you would like. If there's a private event, you'll see a sign and you will not be able to go at that time, but otherwise you may go and enjoy those grounds at no fee, which is a pretty big deal. I also want to point out respectfully to our sister cities, we've got something they don't have. And I know we got a lot of modern people and our young people are trendy and doing new things. all of them are taking pictures in front of our historic assets, in front of our historic homes, our historic districts. And it's a real brag point, in my opinion, that we're taking so much care and pride in this. So this is speaking directly to improvements that'll go on at Mimosa. We have grand plans. There's a long list. I may have a few extras I want to add at some point, but the top 5 items that we're going to talk about tonight will activate Mimosa Hall so that we can entertain large groups of people and compete in the special events arena and draw money in to help support those assets and then grow that industry. So we are well on our way, not to steal all your thunder, Mr. Leatherman, but it's a pretty exciting time for the city of Roswell to not just have the old girls sitting around, but the old girls are going to be show ponies, and we want everybody to be able to enjoy those.
Well, let's just, so I'm going to give Jeff a proper introduction because he deserves it. So one of the things that people don't see that I take great satisfaction in the amazing teamwork between the elected leaders, the governing body, the city council, and the senior leadership team. And I guess what I would share with my fellow residents is it really is a collaboration. It is not I kind of call the council's kind of the board. And what the board has to be clear about is creating direction and policy. And then what we're blessed with is really to have amazing collaboration from an amazing senior team of leadership inside the city. And the senior team of leadership is really the one that comes up occasionally, with the exception of David Johnson. One of these other 5 people on the governing board will come up with a good idea. And then we'll talk about it. But a lot of the really great ideals that are incubating in our city are coming from our senior leadership team, led by Mr. Randy Knighton. And so if you look to my right, you can't see him on the cameras. One of the problems with me, you can't see all the amazing people that make up our senior staff and the staff right below the senior staff. And so Mr. Knighton leads his team, and then you have Sharon Izo, who's our deputy city administrator. You have Jeff Leatherman, our other deputy city administrator. We haven't really done a good job. We've kind of been quiet about announcing our new COO, which we really will. We'll announce him pretty soon. But he's been here for a couple of weeks. We have Don Stevens directly reporting to Randy. And below that is just a plethora of amazing talent. And the reason I tell you that is because we started talking about historical assets and how important they were to our city, but we didn't really have great plans. There were a lot of siloed things. And so Deputy City Administrator Jeff Leatherman, basically I call the visionary behind creating, kind of putting the grand plan together. And so that's why tonight is important, because tonight's really the first unfolding of the activation of the long-term founders kind of park activity that's going to happen. So with that, Mr. Leatherman, the creator and the visionary.
Well, I couldn't have asked for a better introduction, and I apologize if I repeat some of the information that both our mayor and Councilmember Hills has said, but you know, it truly did, the project really did start with Holly Hill, as rightly indicated. While we've been in the historic asset business for quite some time, the tipping point was the acquisition of Holly Hill, and sitting down with the mayor and council and having the charge of, if we're going to be in the historic asset business, what is the plan for implementation? You see some of the images on the slide. That was our first iteration of the historic asset planning process, where we really started to sit down and really understand what were our goals and dreams for all of our historic assets. How do we connect the river into the historic district into our community, and the Founders Park into our economic development strategy? And the work really started in December with the acquisition of Holly Hill and has been progressing over time. And I think it's difficult for our community sometimes to understand how all of these pieces stitch together. And as Mr. Knighton indicated during our millage rate presentation, Holly Hill was just a small bullet point on a significant list of improvements and initiatives that leads to the activation of our historic assets and the connection into our economic development strategy. And so we started, I will say, from humble beginnings in the office, really working through how do we put all of these pieces together and starting to vision around celebration and special events, as Councilmember Hills has said, and tipping that scale into our City Hall trails and the vision for connecting the property that we stand on today into our Canton Street and Historic District, which is a project that is moving forward as we speak and is currently out to bid. We've actually completed what I will say 3 projects: the acquisition of Holly Hill, the completion of the town square renovations, as well as some improvements to the driveway and the second floor of Mimosa, which will be opening here in October and November of this year, so just in this next couple of months. And those were the first implementation measures of the Historic Parks Gardens Plan, as we originally referred to it, that started to transition into this vision around Founders Park and connecting all of our historic parks together. And the reality is, I think as Councilmember Hills has said, is we have 24 acres of parkland with our historic assets tucked right in the middle of our downtown historic district. You couldn't win the lottery with anything better as you start to think about our economic development strategy and connecting what is Barrington Hall and Town Square all the way up Mimosa into what is our traditional Canton Street. And you take that one step further as we start to work on the parking deck a little bit further to the north, then you can start to vision how these things will start to come together in our community. We're right around the corner from adding a couple of hotels into our community that will support not only the economic development strategy, but also Founders Park and the work that we're doing here. As Councilmember Hills has mentioned, the vision around Mimosa is also inclusive of Bullock, and 5 main and key items with that improvement is how do we activate first and foremost into the special event arena that we want to be. And the prioritization of the ask for tonight with the agenda item is prioritizing infrastructure improvements first and foremost. So the pond improvements around Bullock and Holly Hill, or between Mimosa and Holly Hill, is vital to the success of our future improvements of all essentially 28 items on this list. And so we're going to start with the infrastructure, as we have done over the course of the last few years, to ensure that we can provide a sustainable growth plan for all of the improvements that we would like to have. So the prioritization of the 5 items is we talked about pond improvements, event pavilion, event space, the Mimosa Hall parking, vendor parking, and then the entranceway, which is listed as number 5, is the flagstone driveway, and ensuring that we can safely access the entirety of this property for special events and special activities as essentially our next iteration of the projects that we've already completed. We're very excited in moving this forward. We have a lot more work to do. The total improvements that you've seen on the list is about $15 million worth of improvements. So this is the first $5 million. $2 million has already been complete. $3 million we're requesting tonight to move these projects forward. This is a little bit more of an oversight of what you'll see around Mimosa Hall as we finish the design portion and move into construction. The intent is to finish all of the contracting work as the agenda item states today. That will be through the end of this calendar year. We'll tip the calendar year into 2025, and we'll begin construction with the target of January, February for construction. We anticipate roughly 12 months of construction time, so that puts us right at about January, February of 2026, where we'll be able to welcome our first guests for special events, special activities, weddings, and other celebrations here on this site. The question becomes, where do we go next? We have essentially $15 million of investment. We've carved off the first 5. And our recommendation that we'll be working on in this next budget year, so coming to you in the fiscal year 25 calendar year, is prioritizing the Barrington Hall improvements. Reason that we want to prioritize the Barrington Hall improvements is that we talk about welcoming people to our community. That's the first historic asset property that you see as you're coming and traveling north on Highway 9. We also have the junction that is going to be opening up pretty soon, which will be right essentially at the front door steps, kind of the back actually doors of Barrington Hall. And we want to provide some parking areas, as you see on the exhibit here, do some improvements in and around the front part of the house, and really welcome people into the historic assets and into our Founders Park as the launching point. We anticipate design and construction for the improvements around Barrington Hall, not including the pedestrian bridges, which are on here, and I'll talk about that in a minute, is about $2.5 million. The real big piece of the vision that rounds out the budget, not included in the $15 million vision that we've cast earlier, is how do we connect pedestrians through this corridor? We have 2 major highways right on the corner of Barrington Hall. So if you look really closely, you can kind of see them. They're number 26 on the corner of Barrington Hall, just to the north, and I would say the northwest side of the property, northeast side of the property. And the vision there is, can we figure out a way to bridge over the top of the 2 highways to connect Town Square to Barrington, connect Barrington Hall over to the Mill Project, and move people through this corridor without having to essentially frogger your way across the two highways there on that corner, and truly connect Founders Park and the entire historic asset plan moving forward. So as the mayor mentioned, tonight is about a contract. It's about kind of a mechanism that we use for the $3 million investment that we're asking for your approval. But really, it's about the culmination of a vision from 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and work that Mr. Malone and his team have truly been working on over the course of the last 18 months. A lot of it is behind the scenes work to get us to this point, and his team and the team behind him, along with our CIP team, truly should be commended for the work that they're doing. I'm excited about the project, obviously. It's something that we got to work on early on as this council, many of you started, and we get to continue to carry that vision forward. So happy to answer any other additional questions that you may have, but that's the vision that we've cast here and the request that we have for council tonight.
Thanks, Jeff. Can everybody see that? Can you, I can't see it super clearly on mine, so can you see it at home, the 29 pieces?
A little fuzzy, but let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger.
It's a good, and where is that available? If somebody wants to see this, where can they find this?
So we'll add it to the agenda item tonight, and then we can find some place on our website that will make it convenient for people to find.
Thank you, sir. Does council have any thoughts, comments, or questions on this amazing presentation? Yes, Sarah?
I have a higher level question. Could you provide, this is obviously with ARPA funds that we're deliberating for this evening, and it's expense, ARPA funds that have to be spent no later than December 31st?
Yes, so we have to encumber the funds no later, and thanks for the question, no later than December of this year. And so that's the reason for the contract mechanism that we're using. And essentially, once we encumber them, we have to sign the contracts, get encumbered with the contractor, and then we're able to start moving forward with the project. And if we don't encumber those funds by the end of this year, the rules are that they do revert back to the federal government.
So use it or lose it. This is not obviously the only ARPA funded project that we've done so far. Could you provide a high-level list of, or just examples of other projects we've completed or are working on with ARPA funds?
Sure. So right now we're using ARPA funding at Mimosa Hall. Some of the second-story improvements that you saw in the photos earlier, including the driveway, include ARPA funding.
River Master Plan.
Yep. Portions of the River Master Plan and City Hall Trails. Yep. And City Hall Trails.
Wasn't the East Roswell turf fields the very first replacement?
I don't think East Roswell Turf had ARPA money in it.
The dog park. Yeah, the East Roswell Dog Park has a component of them.
The dog park.
Yep.
The dog park, yes.
It was the soccer fields we used for the first, but go ahead.
We were moving some money around. So we had both ARPA money and bond money between the dog park and the turf fields. We used bond money on the turf fields, ARPA funding on the dog park.
Sarah, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did answer my question, because obviously this is not the sole recipient. This project is not the sole recipient of our ARPA funds. It is the tail end of our ARPA funds, correct?
That's correct.
That's a great point. Thanks
I do have one other question. I know based on your presentation and previous conversations, it was also discussed in the economic development presentation that we had a couple months ago. The goal for this area, my understanding, is to be revenue generating. What is the projected target revenue for this area, the Founders Park properties, annually once they're all rocking and rolling?
Just reading my notes. So the projections right now, long-term estimated full capacity for the calendar year is about $1.1 million based on our current pricing model. We also anticipate that we will start to market the property in 2025 before we actually are fully open for business. So we know that there will be some ramp-up time in 26 and then in 27 as well. So we're hoping for the end of 27 we'll be at full capacity.
Well, and let me just, can I address that as well?
Sure.
You're still early in the business, you're still early in the development of the business model. All of this will come to you?
Yep.
All this will come to council. He's just putting the framework together. And the beginning, the idea is to monetize, right? Basically, you've got the assets. Can you make money off the assets? He's still very early, preliminary. So this is 1.1 million. That's a very early number in terms, I think, of full monetization.
Question that, realizing that it's still early in your estimations, do we have annual O&M cost once it's all up and running? Operations and maintenance costs?
Still working through that, as the mayor indicated. As we look at the full package, what are we passing on to the customer that they're going to be responsible for as it relates to vendors and sale and use of the property, and what are we going to retain on our side of the ledger that the funding sources will need to.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because that question is kind of like the theme of everything you and I are doing, which ultimately to create real offsets and not take away, there's just been a direct expense application rather than indirect expense application. And part of this is to really take that burden off the taxpayer. And if you're going to create things that you're going to create revenue from, is to have both direct and indirect costs associated with them. Your question is spot on, because it's not just this. It's a whole bunch of stuff we're going to do, Sarah. I think that if we're successful and pull off, not only will create real new lines of revenue for the city, but reduce the property tax, which ultimately is, one of our things is to create so many lines of revenue, is that we dramatically reduce the property tax, if not get out of the property tax business for the city of Roswell residents. But that takes a host of strategies, and but I love where your question is going with that. So thank you, Councilmember Sells.
Yeah. First of all, Frogger was not on my bingo card tonight. I just want you to know that.
Sorry.
Now, that $1.1 million is just inside the envelope of what we're talking about here. That's basically what you're seeing as revenue within this space.
Just in what you see there on the screen. So we're talking about a very small component of the overall historic parks and gardens planning process.
And specifically.
And just a piece, Alan, I just want to say, this is just Mimosa as he's got it engineered now.
Correct.
This is not Mimosa in total.
It's true enough. So we want visitors to be drawn to our history. We want them to stay longer. So obviously, the hotels that we have in train that we're working on right now, boutique hotels that are close enough by, we want them to have a great time. We want them to spend lots of money, and then we want them to go home. And so this is definitely a part of that strategy. And the knock-on effects are probably, they are a multiple of the 1.1.
Absolutely. So, we could chase this conversation all over the place, and it's wonderful to have that opportunity, because the reality is we start to think about, okay, weekend stays versus midweek stays. How do we fill up, beyond what our current hotel capacity is as we add new hotel rooms? Our charge really is to be a big component of filling up hotel rooms with our partners with Roswell Inc. and Visit Roswell to ensure that our occupancy in those hotel rooms continues to increase over time.
And the vision, it's not just about, sorry, because, I get off on the monetization tract all the time, but the real issue is to activate these historical assets for more people, so people understand this great, rich tradition of the city of Roswell's history, and share that. Right. This is kind of, Ellen, to where your point is, not only are there multipliers based upon the economics, but part of it is to actually make, the historic assets have had a pretty small audience. They've been important, but they haven't had a very big audience.
Right.
And this is to make them more relevant.
And I think as Councilmember Hills had mentioned, and it's the little decisions that we make that you kind of miss in some of the opportunities. And we were at a meeting with some HOAs on Friday, 2 weeks ago, I believe it was. And one of our HOA members just made a passing comment that she is attending our historic assets with her visitors here in the community more regularly because we took the fee structure away, because we essentially made those assets that the taxpayers are supporting free. And that's that knock-on effect that Councilmember Sells is talking about is, the more time we can have our visitors here locally. My in-laws were in town over the weekend, this last weekend, and we're incentivized just to come and visit one of the houses. We can drop in. We don't have that paywall essentially in front of us to say, hey, let's go swing by and see what's new as we're doing History Seek Saturdays or other activities, because we can go and join it for free. And that gives us the opportunity to park down here, potentially swing over into a restaurant, whether we're grabbing a drink or grabbing a meal, having that additional tax revenue that's coming into the city because we are visiting the historic assets. And some of those little decisions that we're making over time is going to continue to grow the relevancy, not only in the story that we're telling, but also in the revenue that we're able to contribute here to the city and to the taxpayers over time.
And it's going to be good for Roswell businesses too, as well, to the whole point. Thank you, sir. Other thoughts, comments, or questions? Yes, sir. Councilmember Worthland, Pro Tem Worthland.
One other piece that we're kind of batting around when it comes to the economic development is the wedding conversation that we've had in the past. These weddings, and Councilmember Hills can certainly speak to this, but these weddings are planned years and years in advance. We're not going to see the benefit of those dollars hitting the bottom line until a little bit further in the future. But everything that we're doing right now is setting the stage for us to have very, very successful events and very, very successful weekends that are going to continue to have and build upon themselves.
Absolutely.
And this was your vision as we started talking about pulling that paywall of visiting the historic homes, pulling that paywall down, and instead of us calling them historic homes, we're going to call them parks. And once the parks became known, then we're going to call them a holistic area. And that's what we're talking about right now. And that is very much exciting and appreciated. Thanks to you.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts, comments from council? Sharon, I promise we'll have you as a visionary up here soon. Thank you, Jeff. I turn the floor over to any Roswell residents who'd like to address the matter. Yes, sir, Mr. Yao. Welcome.
So I usually come up and complain and criticize. But first I'd like to say Holly Hill was a great buy. Screaming buy at $1.5 million, hands down. Jeff's plan can tie it all together. It's a great piece of work. I love it. But there's a component that you're missing. You're going to build it with the idea that if we build it, they will come. And I've got a suggestion of how you can do that. We have such a rich history. We need to find writers who can spin the story of Roswell like a Mishner novel over the centuries that can be sold to Netflix and filmed here on location in Roswell, that tells the story of Roswell, that tells the story of America from the small town perspective that Roswell is. That will drive people to Roswell. They'll come to see the things that they saw on TV, and they'll go, I want to live here. I want to have a wedding here. I want to have a party here. I want to have a corporate event here because this is a place that speaks to the American experience. And if you do that, you'll take what Jeff has done and it will be writ large. And, you know, I'm not one to quote the Bible, but I'm going to quote the Bible here because I think it's appropriate. So, a city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket but on a stand, and it gives light to all the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. I've always said that Roswell is a city on a hill. And one of the reasons I can be so critical is because I love this town. It may surprise some people, but I do. And I do see it as a city on a hill, and I see this as a tremendous opportunity to show a huge audience what we have and bring them here and share the experience with them. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason, for those very profound and heartfelt comments. We appreciate that. By the way, there's a book called Mornings on Horseback, 1982 Pulitzer Prize winning book. Worth reading. It's about Theodore Roosevelt and the incredible tie to the city of Roswell. So not exactly Mishner, but a book of any Roswell resident I think would enjoy. It's a great story.
There's so many storylines that we have that can be told and spun off almost indefinitely.
100%. And what's really cool is the story going forward about the city of Roswell. But thanks to the great people of the city. Any other thoughts or comments from Roswell residents? I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jason, for your thoughts. I bring it back to the council for any additional thoughts, comments, or questions. Yes, sir. Councilman Borthland.
There is a recent show about a small town community called the Ozarks, and I highly request that we stay away from the Ozarks if we are to do this.
I'm sorry, Will. I'm not familiar. I know you and Johnson get together and watch that kind of stuff, so we'll leave it to you two. All right, any other thoughts, comments, or questions? If not, I believe, yes, ma'am, sorry, Sarah.
just going back to the questions that I had originally asked, so based off what was stated tonight, it's a $15 million total investment. I realize that the O&M hasn't been completely ironed out yet. Per Mayor Wilson, we're still working through the business plan. Normally, I don't feel comfortable appropriating funds without a finalized business plan in place of how we see to either recoup those funds or implement those funds to the fullest use of the public. That being said, I also understand the use it or lose it approach. This is ARPA funds that if we do not finalize that spend and actually spend it by December 31st, we will lose it. So with that, I'm comfortable moving forward.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from council? Lee, I think this one is in your ball court.
I'm ready.
All right.
This evening, I motion to award the CMAR services for the Historic Parks Comprehensive Plan improvements to Reeves Young, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $460,420 plus 4.5% of the total construction cost, as well as an allocation of an amount not to exceed $3 million for construction costs to be funded by ARPA funds and authorize the city administrator to execute contract.
Thank you, Lee. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Sells. Thank you very much. All those in favor of passing this item, please raise your hands. And let the record show that the item passes unanimously 6-0. And congratulations to the City of Roswell, like Director Leatherman, City Administrator Knighton, and the rest of the senior team. Congratulations to Lee and the rest of the council. Thank you so much. All right. At this time, I think we have, the city attorney's report. So, David?
Thank you, Mayor. The first item on my agenda is approval of a resolution for expansion of the North Fulton Community Improvement District. The North Fulton Community Improvement District has requested to expand its boundaries for 16 properties. 10 of those 16 properties would be within the city of Roswell, and they need the council's authorization to move forward with this expansion.
Thanks very much. Anything else technically that needs to be read before we ask council for any
No.
comments?
There is a map attached, and the tax commissioner has verified the compliance with getting 75% of the property value.
Alex, are you the sacrificial lamb?
Yes, sir, I am. I am. I just want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all tonight.
Well, tell everybody who you are. Most people, you're a great guy. Most people don't get to know you, so a lot of people should
I'm
know
Alex
you.
Battle. I'm with True North 400. I've had the honor of being able to work here at True North for about 5 years now, and also the ability to entrench myself in this community the last handful of years. So, very honored to be here. And, I just come before you all this evening to seek approval for our expansion. Like Mr. Davidson mentioned, we are adding 16 properties, 10 which are within the city limits of Roswell, and just wanted to see if I can answer any questions for you all.
Very good. Does the council have any questions? Yes, ma'am. Sarah?
So I'll be frank, some of the criticism that we've received in the past, or even some of us have shared, is that the investment from North Fulton CID, otherwise known as True North CID, right? That's the correct name.
Yes.
True North CID. They
400.
changed their name this year.
Yes.
Has been that it's heavily focused in Alpharetta with not a whole lot of investment in Roswell. But my understanding is, and correct me on these percentages if I'm wrong, currently we're at 16% of your total map coverage area is Roswell. And so
Yes.
the investment has been commensurate with that amount. So if we increase it to, is it 19% coverage now?
Correct.
So we
Yes.
would see commensurate investment within those areas as well?
Yes, and one includes, a large portion of the Big Creek area. And, we are committed to investing in Big Creek and helping with that big project.
To clarify, Big Creek Parkway, not Big Creek Park, correct?
Correct.
Got it.
Would you just say that again for the record? Because I'm sure everybody would like to hear you say that
We
again.
would love to be involved with Big Creek Parkway.
There, which for the record is in East Roswell.
It is in East Roswell, yes.
Excellent. Yeah, that's, on my end, I will be honest, I've been one of the critics in the past. I'm fully supportive of CIDs or community improvement districts. Correct me on this, is it 2 or 2.5% of the levied commercial taxes?
We are at 3 mills.
3 mills, okay, so it's
Yes.
3 mills on top of the commercial taxes. So it's in addition to purely on the commercial properties, not residential properties whatsoever. And that money levied has to be reinvested into the area that's within the maps, correct?
Correct. Within the boundaries, money cannot be spent without, outside of the existing boundaries.
Got it. So we're really paving the way for more reinvestment and beautification and infrastructure improvements in East Roswell.
And to your point, every business Alex has to elect to be in. You cannot mandate a business. The city can't mandate a business. CID can't mandate a business. You go to a business and say, hey, we would like to join the CID, and the business has to make a decision whether or not they're going to join
correct.
the CID. And
They admit and they are aware that they are in it as long as the CID is within existence.
And it's not residential taxes. I'm going to say it just for the sake of repeating. It is not residential taxes that are impacted by this. It is purely commercial property, with the mayor's point of them opting into this for the investment purpose.
Office, industrial, and shopping centers.
Excellent, thank you.
just since we opened up Pandora's box. For example, some of the money used in Alpharetta, like, for example, was on one of the 400 bridges, was it not?
Yes, on
Can you
Parkway.
Yeah, the Parkway. So you guys beautified the bridge as a beautiful entrance for the city of Alpharetta.
Exactly. That was a joint partnership with the CID, True North 400, City of Alpharetta, and our state partners with DOT and State Road and Tollway Authority.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Christine.
Those were a couple of my points I wanted to make, is what are some of the beautification things, or what are some of the things you did? But also, will you share how many CIDs there are in the state, and typically what their mills are compared to what?
Absolutely. So community improvement districts in Georgia were created to enhance local communities by providing a mechanism for property owners to fund improvements and services with their local government partners. You know, and we overall aim collaboration among property owners and local governments to create vibrant, sustainable communities. So how CIDs were created in 1985 was a bipartisan bill from Governor Zell Miller and Johnny Isakson to help expedite and streamline transportation infrastructure projects. And now there are 30 CIDs in Georgia. There was one that just formed in Savannah this year, actually.
And typically, what do they charge, or what are their mill rates?
So we take a lot of pride in being the lowest millage rate out of all the CIDs in Georgia, being at 3 mills. Cumberland CID is at 5, Buckhead CID is at 5, and Perimeter is at 4. Those are the ones I'm aware of, millage rate-wise.
And you guys are at 3.
We are.
And the whole ideal concept, just kind of, I'm glad you said it, the whole idea between CIDs, community improvement districts, is really so businesses can help supercharge improvement of local infrastructure projects. To be frank, when they feel like either their local government doesn't have the money to do it or the prioritization to do it. So this is a way of creating a pool of commercial businesses to say, hey, we'd like to do this project. And you guys kind of organize that. And we are excited about the True North CID. I get confused on that too, because, you know, the True North CID is, you're waiting on Roswell to bring your projects. That's what my understanding is, right?
Sure.
So, and Big Creek Parkway, as you know, we talked about that a lot. So that's a big deal for the city of Roswell and its future, and it's a gigantic deal.
Huge.
David, you had something to say, didn't you? I know you did. I could sense it. I could sense it.
I believe I have no good ideas, so I'm good.
Now that you're on the record saying that, I'm good. All right, Council, any other thoughts? Yes, sir, Will.
I'll hold. Give me a second.
All right. Would any Roswell residents like to ask have any thoughts or questions or asking on this particular matter? Jason's left us, so we don't have him. All right. So I'm going to bring it back to council. Alex, thank you so much. Stand up there for a second, just by any chance, if we have any. Yes, sir, Will?
So just to clarify and make this point one more time, True North CID is fully behind the Big Creek Parkway funding assistance, correct?
I can't exactly speak on behalf of the board of directors, but we had our board retreat in January, and our main takeaways from the board retreat, they want me to focus on Roswell businesses so we can do more projects in Roswell, and this perfectly fits that description.
And by the way, thanks, Will. Just as a follow-up, you have 12 board members.
We have 10 board members.
Yeah, sorry, 10 board members, and 4 of those board members are Roswell businesses, correct? So is that right? You got UPS, the real estate tycoon?
UPS, Mr. Stroud represents
Steve Stroud,
Buck Woodruff's
and
car dealerships.
And Al Nash.
And Mr. Nash was actually a Fulton County appointee.
Okay, but they're all, those four are Roswell residents slash businesses.
Yes,
So
sir.
technically, you could say we have 40% representation,
That is
even
true.
though we're currently at 16% of the map. And this, if the council approves this map, you simply go to 19% of the map.
Sir.
And there's a lot more happening going on in the future, so we'll have more conversations, obviously.
Absolutely.
All right, Willie, did I cut you off? All right, well, Willie, do you want to make a motion?
Yes, sir. Motion to approve the resolution for the expansion of the North Fulton Community Improvement District.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Johnson. All in favor of approving this particular motion, please raise your hands. Let the records show that the passage unanimously 5-0. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Alex. Appreciate your help so much, and congratulations, sir. You now have an expanded map vis-a-vis the City Council of Roswell.
Thank
All
you,
right.
guys. Thank you, everybody, so much, and look forward to talking here in the coming days.
We look forward to seeing you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Jamie Gazzetti doesn't have your number, by the way. He told me earlier today. So.
He has it now.
Okay. All right, City Attorney Davidson, would you please read the last item on the City Attorney's report?
Thank you, Mayor. The last item I have is a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel litigation and real estate.
Do I have a motion for closure? Motion by Councilmember Johnson. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Beason. All in favor of closure, please raise your hands. Closure passes 5-0. Thank you very much. All right, being that there are no other items, this mayor and council meeting of September 23rd, 2024 is adjourned. We go to closure. Thank you so much.